Hello, my name is Ken Kinter, and I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University. And the purpose of this presentation is to discuss, it's part one of motivational interviewing, the spirit and the method. This is part one of a two-part series, and this is an update for 2024, representing the fourth edition of motivational interviewing. So this replaces an earlier video that was done. If you like what you're hearing, go tell somebody. Comments are welcome about this presentation or about other presentations you would like us to take on. We appreciate the shares and the subscribes, and of course, we appreciate your time in watching it. So the project that I work for is called the State Hospital Psychiatric Rehabilitation Initiative, and it is a joint affiliation between Rutgers University and the State Psychiatric Hospitals of New Jersey to improve the quality of care and working conditions there. It's made possible by a grant from the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and it is a collaboration with the New Jersey Department of Health. Without their financial and other support, none of this happens. So we are grateful for that. So today we're going to take on the first half of the new content in motivational interviewing, the ones highlighted in red below. We're going to talk about the why of motivational interviewing, do a brief overview, and talk about the spirit of method. Part two, we'll get into the tools and all those other things. So the definition of motivational interviewing has changed a little bit, and I like a lot of the changes that they've made in the fourth edition. So motivational interviewing is a particular way of talking to people about change and growth to strengthen their own motivation and commitment. I like that. Other briefer definitions that they give in the book is it's a way of doing and also a way of being with your clients, sharing their experience as much as trying to work with them and help them. And it's a way of doing what you already do. One of the critiques of motivational interviewing is, wait a minute, I've done this before, I've seen this before. In many ways, it's more of a reorganization and a method of things more than it is anything new and extraordinary on its own. The organization is where the strength is, I think. MI is not being nice to people. It's not persuasion. It's not teaching. It's not stages of change, even though it works very nicely with that model. And we have other videos about that as well. It's not manipulating people, and it's not giving advice. And I love this quote from Monty Roberts. There's no such thing as teaching, only learning. Knowledge cannot be pushed into a brain. It must be willingly drawn into the brain by the recipient. I like that a lot. So who is motivational interviewing for? Who can this help? And here's not a complete, but a pretty good list. It was designed originally for people with addictions. And what was found was it worked really well with people in those early stages of change, pre-contemplation and contemplation. So the people who either didn't see that they had a problem or knew they had a problem but didn't know what to do about it. People who are suffering from trauma because it does not take the control away from them. You're not getting people to do what they don't want to do, which is the last thing you want to do with someone that's been traumatized. It is for people of different cultures. Again, because that person is in the steering wheel, they direct where this goes. It's difficult to impose your values. So that is a strength of it. It's also for those of us delusional types who try to fix everybody. And a lot of us are guilty of this. This is why we went into this field. We went in to help people. And very often we try to go in and fix people. Also for helpers who want to say or do the perfect thing. Talk about delusional. This was me for many years. I thought there was the perfect thing I could do or say that would spontaneously cure mental illness or addiction. And I put a phenomenal amount of pressure on myself. And motivational interviewing is one of those things that takes that pressure off. It helps you do your job. I guess the saying I would say is it helps you to work smart and not hard. Because sometimes the harder you're working, the less you're actually getting done. And just in terms of a sales pitch, motivational interviewing is one of the 2 or 3 most important things I've learned in 30 plus years in the field. It has helped me that much. That's one of the reasons I'm excited about it. So a great quote from Bill Miller, one of the founders of motivational interviewing: people don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. How true is that? How true is that for you? If there's something that you want to work on, you want someone to listen to you more than you want them to tell you what to do. So not specifically motivational interviewing, but something good that came out of the book was 8 characteristics of more successful therapists. So nice list here: accurate empathy. And I love how they make that specific. Being able to feel as much as you can what the client is feeling. You can never feel exactly what they feel, but you are familiar with the emotion. Other things have conjured it for you. Hope, positive regard, acceptance, shared goals, which we'll talk about a lot, evocation, we'll talk about a lot, offering information and advice, although we downplay that a lot in motivational interviewing, there is a place for it. The problem is that it's usually our go-to, and here you kind of put it on the back burner a little bit. And they talk an awful lot about genuineness, honest, open, responsive, humble. The whole idea of you have to be who you are. So even if you have a room full of people doing motivational interviewing, they're not going to do it all the exact same way, and that's a good thing. So again, some of the foundational philosophy of motivational interviewing, take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to make change happen. You can't. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have them. And even if you did have them, if the person isn't ready to hear them, there's no point. And you're not wrestling, you're dancing. Wrestling is force on force, and dancing is two people moving together. And that is what that really encapsulates the motivational interviewing uh, mindset. If you really feel like it's you against the client, you're trying to make them do something and they're trying to not do it, or they're trying to do something else, time for a change attack, because you're always going to lose that battle. So the spirit of motivational interviewing consists of four parts: partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation. It is a partnership. You are the expert in what you know. The person is the expert in their life. You are a guest in their world. The time that you're working with them, you are visiting them in their world, and they are the guide. So they're taking you through what their world looks like. And that expertise is going to be essential for you to be able to work with that person. And to do that, we have to withhold what they used to call the writing reflex. Now they're calling the fixing reflex, which is getting caught in this cycle of trying to persuade, argue, warn, basically trying to impose our will of what they should do. We make suggestions, we make ideas, they say no, we go through the cycle a few times, and then to let ourselves off the hook, we go, they don't really want help. So that's kind of how that part works. The other piece of partnership is we all have our own individual style. Some of us are more directive, some of us are more supportive, maybe more Rogerian. Motivational interviewing really aims toward that sweet spot in the middle of guiding. So there's moments of leadership, there's moments of following, but it's really that walking alongside instead of walking in front or walking behind. Acceptance. You accept a person the way they are, not the way that you want them to be or you think that they should be. They are the way they are for a very good reason. And if you don't know what that very good reason is, then you need to listen more. That's really a necessary piece. You can't move from where you are until you have a real grasp and acceptance of where that person is. Compassion and empathy, we talked a little bit about before. Feeling with. This is not pity. This is not sympathy. This is not feeling bad for somebody. You know what it's like to be sad. You know what it's like to be afraid. You know what it's like to be alone. You know, you have your version of how they've felt. And tapping into that helps you to be able to connect with that person despite not having the same experience. And I love this definition of compassion: the intention to give top priority to the health and well-being of the person whom you are serving. And that's the Dalai Lama and Vreeland from their article. One of the big parts of motivational interviewing is empowerment. And you can't empower somebody by putting them in the lower position in a power dynamic in the therapeutic relationship. So instead of, I have what you need and I'm going to give it to you, you already have what you need. Together we will find it. I think that's a real big shift in mindset from where we tend to be in our expert role. So one of the major contributions of motivational interviewing to the field is their view on resistance. And now it's become a lot more commonly accepted. In the past, we just described the client is resistant. The client is resistant to treatment. Okay, pretty simple, right? Which translated as they won't do what I want. Unfortunately, resistance is a label. It stigmatizes the client, and it also lets us off completely off the hook, right? It's not our fault they didn't change. It's their fault they didn't change. Instead of maybe us listening for a sign to change tack. You know, we're trying to get them to do something they're not ready to do or they don't want to do. And they're not just going to do it because of our degree or because of our position or because of our say so. Now, on the other hand, ambivalence is a natural thing. You've experienced ambivalence before. You feel two ways about the same thing at the same time. You can see both sides of it. And until you resolve that, you tend to take no action. You tend to stay in between. Ambivalence is normal. Ambivalence is natural because part of it involves leaving this safe, familiar spot from where I'm at. Even if it's uncomfortable here, I don't even know if it's going to be more uncomfortable when I make this change. And ambivalence reflects both sides of the situation, the pros and the cons. And I love this quote from the book. If you disagree with your therapist, it is resistance. If you agree, it's insight. Okay, we can laugh at it, but let's make sure we're not feeding into that as well. So a great thing that we hear from a lot of the staff that we work with is, oh, my client's unmotivated and I'm unmotivated. They're motivated. $1 million will motivate them. A job will motivate them. A pack of cigarettes will motivate them. Something will motivate them. We all have motivation. We have the intrinsic internal motivations, the extrinsic external motivations. We have it already. The thing is, how do we tap into it? How do we tap into the motivation that the person already has? And of course, sometimes the idea is we're motivated in two directions, so we're up against each other. So the method of motivational interviewing, really, really critical piece here. This is the process, and I think this is probably where we miss the boat a lot of the time. So I have a ladder here as a metaphor for this. However, like a ladder, if you've ever put a ladder up against the side of the house and you say, okay, I'm only going to go up once and I'm going to come down once, you know what happens. You end up going up and down. You forget something, you go back and get it. You have to go back and forth. And it's like that in the MI method as well. So the first part of the ladder, really critical, is the engagement, creating a work alliance. So again, how do we foster this relationship? How do we find, shared goals? How do we explore what the person's values are and just establish that therapeutic relationship? The relationship still is the container in which change happens. So how do we start that alliance? Focus. What is it that we're going to change, and have that be a positive orientation? So say, well, I want to be at a healthier weight rather than I want to be less overweight. So let's not make it a deficit situation. Evoking is the why of change. Why do you want to do this? And then the planning is how to change. A way I've heard this expressed I thought was pretty good is the engaging. So let's take the example of a walk. So engaging is, can we walk together? Focusing is, where are we going to go? Evoking is, well, why do you want to go there? And then the planning is, how are we going to get there? So if you think about it in terms of planning a walk and where are we going, I think that's a really nice organic way of looking at it. One other word about planning. I love this. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, says Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, and a Prussian general from the 1800s. And from that great philosopher and boxer, Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And what I like about both of these is they say the same thing. Until you hit that ambivalence, until you hit that pushback, you're not working yet. For many of us, that's a sign to give up. That's actually when the work starts. The plan when it changes. So another strength of motivational interviewing is the tools that are involved, and this is one of them. We can send you these handouts if you want to. They're also in the book. The payoff matrix. So this is, if you've ever done a pro and con list, which I understand dates back to 1772. Benjamin Franklin wrote about it in a letter. This is a 2x2. So going from the top left, you can see here are the benefits of change, the benefits of not changing, the consequences of change, and the consequences of not changing. So the diagonals are going to be kind of similar. When I do this with clients, I ask them to pick the thing that they want to change and then put something in every one of these boxes. Have them come at it from each side. These are the good things about making this change. Here are the good things about not doing anything. Here are the consequences. If I do make this positive change, there will be negative consequences to that. My favorite example of that is, if I stop using drugs, then I can't hang out with my friends anymore. And then, of course, the consequences of not changing. So I have them put something in each of these four boxes, and then I have them circle the biggest one. What's the biggest one? Because that's really what you're going to be up against in terms of change. They're very easy traps to fall into, and we have all fallen into them. And so motivational interviewing puts them right out there. Probably the simplest one is the expert trap. And this is where we just go in and try to problem solve and fix everything for the person. There's also the persuasion trap where we take the side of change, so they take the side of staying the same, and then we just sit there and butt heads and we work real hard. And that's a dynamic that we don't want. You're almost better off going the opposite way and having the person become the voice for change and you become the voice for staying the same. The time trap, the arch enemy of the engagement process is I'm in a hurry. Well, anything you don't do right, we probably end up doing again. So if we don't spend the time doing the engagement piece, we'll probably be doing it again at some point because we're in too much of a hurry. Usually it's our organizations that are in too much of a hurry, but that's where that is. And then the other part is the wandering trap, which is we just not having a goal, not having a plan, and we just kind of follow along. My wife and I always refer to bad therapy as rent a friend, and that's kind of what this alludes to. I also love this saying, also regarding partnership, old African saying, go alone, go faster, go together, go farther. I like that a lot. So, in the way of a teaser, the most foundational core skills of motivational interviewing are called OARs, open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. Learning that skill is vital to doing motivational interviewing. It's really critical to have both the spirit, which we've talked about today, and the tools, which is in the next video. So I encourage you to see that one and spend some time on this as well. So just to summarize what we talked about so far, motivational interviewing is a way to change what you are doing so that you are doing less fixing and more listening. MI consists of spirit, method, and tools. And one of the critical pieces of motivational interviewing is engagement. Holding off the advice, holding off the direction, holding off the persuasion, and all this stuff that we want to do, which very often gets called paternalistic, holding off on all that stuff and letting that person, fill the space. The idea that they are actually trying to solve their own problems. So let them, and let's not interrupt that flow of what they're doing. So these are the references, 4th edition of the MI textbook, 8 Stages in Learning Motivational Interviewing. The website is fantastic. It has all sorts of supports on it, including resources for additional training, videos, all that kind of stuff. If you're liking what you're hearing so far and you want to go further with it, that would be the first place to go. And don't forget to catch the rest of our videos. And also special thanks to Bill Miller, who freely gifted the first version of this PowerPoint that I took when I took this training in 2006. Anyway, it's been fun talking to you. You take care and hopefully see you for round 2.